Hey, it's Mike, and I'm back with a little bit more history. And at request, this is the this is the area of the east portal of the Manunka Chunk Tunnels, and what's happened ever since the major flooding. So, hang on, Ev. You don't have to come right down here, okay? The entire right of way is now backed up with water in the cut approaching the Manunka Chunk Tunnels. Last time I was here, the water over here was far too high overhead, and you can see there's already algae bloom and stuff forming in here. And this this rock wall was built up over the right-of-way. I'm coming out of there, Ev. So you can't even see the tunnel where you used to be able to see it right here. There's a ramp right here. I'm coming, Ev. Hang on. So what are we seeing here? The Warren Railroad was built by John I. Blair, as I'd stated before, in 1856. This is Catherine's Run. It started trenching itself over to the side. Historically, the brook had always flowed over in here and made a nice little cascade. Now no water running over it, and it's moved over this way a bit. Ev, we're only going to go up here briefly, okay? Huh? I just want to get a little view of the tunnel for everybody before we head back. So, built by the Warren Railroad, quickly became the main line of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western. And I think I can get a view of it right here to show you guys. It's not great. It's right through there, though. There's a historic postcard photo taken from this spot. But it's a double tunnel for opposing traffic. The original one built in 1856. The second one went in the 1870s. I've done stuff enough there in the past. You can see tons of pictures of it. But we're going to talk about the management of this site, how it started out in a kind of a curiosity. It's amazing that this tunnel was ever even built, because it was easy to just go around the Manunka Chunk Mountain. I don't even understand it to this day. Here, let's see. We'll go right up to the edge of this and kind of peer over. You can see the tunnels, and the right-of-way is pretty dry over there. A little bit of water just coming from the other side. It looks that they built the right-of-way, yes, Ev, into the cut, natural cut created by Catherine's Run initially. I would assume that when it was built in 1856, they probably had plenty of room to have the run with its normally low water right beside the creek. But when they double-tracked it, I believe Lackawanna went double-tracked in 1876. No, wait, I think I'm wrong. It's a little bit earlier than that. 1876, I think, was when they switched from broad gauge to standard gauge. They had to figure something else out. So this was an important spot right here. I want you to look over here at this slight dip in the landscape right here. So that was an artificial sluice created by the railroad to carry Catherine's Run up and away from the grade. So if you go up just a little bit in here, there is wooden lining in there, still in place. And see all this wood in the ground here? That's what's left of it. See, there's still wood rotting in there. Amazing. They probably used chestnut boards or something. But the creek made its way up into this artificial waterway. Now, it's a stone-lined, not only stone-lined, but stone-floored secondary creek. And it continued up through that, parallel with the farm fields. It's okay, Ev. Give me your hand. Let's go through. Come on. I gotta pick you up? Okay. So, it continued like that way up above us here. And then it washed out very badly, and very similar to how it did in 2023. It washed out very badly in 1913. There was some sort of a, I think they described it as a monsoon had taken place. And I'm going to walk over here real quick. Ev, stay right here, okay? I'll be right back. Get a better view of this. that washed out everything. And I think it's probably 1913 that they shifted the creek a little bit. So this here that's kind of newly excavated after the 2023 incident, this was already a secondary little creek anyway. Right, Ev? Yeah, excavator, you're right. That's how it goes. This was already kind of trenched out. And the historic photos show that this area was a bit wider and that there were buildings that stood along the slope. And some of the cut no longer matches it because it seems that they ended up digging it out for this newer route for the creek, which I believe replaced in 1913 the one from above, or at least created a secondary channel in case there was another incident. And of course there was. Since the railroad was abandoned in 1970, there's been no maintenance on it ever since then. The last major flood that the railroad would have repaired was 1955, and nothing ever really happened after that. So right before the 2023 incident, in fact, within a couple of weeks prior to that, I recorded a video saying that this was going to be a problem, that, you know, that they're going crazy about the rockfall project in Delaware Water Gap, but this is where the actual problem was, with more of these brittle shale rocks ready to come down into Route 46. I never intended for it to be such a bad thing, but I told you so, and I had the video proof right before it saying this was going to happen. So here, I understand that there's been a big problem with it because they had to do something to keep people out of the tunnel, but in the long term, there's got to be something done to it. It's not really accessible from this side unless you climb down, and inevitably people are going to climb down or end up hurting themselves on that cliff there. Or this isn't moving enough for it to become a swim hazard, but it is also still a secondary liability. Catherine's Run still flows down here. And there's these tiny pipes that take it under this access road that was created. But I think in the long term, there needs to be a better access for the road and for the creek to make its way back out to its natural course downstream from here. No matter what, there will always be some degree of water flowing through the tunnel because it comes right through the roof of it. There's springs all under it. So there's no dealing with that. There's a couple of different choices, the way I see it, when it comes to mitigating the tunnel issue. One of them is to create basically a stint inside the tunnel. This was done with the Poe Mountain Tunnel in Poe Patty State Park, Pennsylvania, and the Penns Creek Pathway and the, do you need a hand? Penns Creek Pathway and the Mid-State Trail both pass through that tunnel. That's basically like a tunnel through the tunnel. It's only maybe 8 feet or so high, and a space was left on top of it that is now doubling as a bat hibernaculum, which is a really nice thing right there. Give me your hand. And then you have what was done on the Great Allegheny Passage. On one case, you got Big Savage Tunnel, which is the longest one on that entire trail. They used a spray concrete. However, I do not believe they had the amount of water issues that we have here. In a case like that, on the same trail, Great Allegheny Passage, there is another tunnel that is called the Pinkerton Tunnel that utilizes a sort of corrugated material placed inside it and then protects it from further damages. Blue Mountain Redding in Northern utilizes both a combination of the sort of spray concrete as well as a sheathing material to keep the tunnels from collapsing, but it also allows for the passage of water around it. So there's things that can be done to preserve the tunnel over here, which is going to need to happen. Not only here, but also on the Oxford Tunnel, which I've stated before is collapsing beneath Route 31. With that, something similar is also going to have to happen because it's also considered a permanent waterway. So there's just a couple of the options, and the problem is it's going to cost. So where that comes from, I don't know. I don't figure out any of that, but somehow all of these other states seem to have ways of refurbishing their abandoned railroad tunnels. This one might be a little more complicated than those, but then again, I think of it, and Big Savage is way longer, was already collapsed. Pinkerton had an entire active railroad tunnel daylighted within a few hundred feet of it, and somehow it was protected from collapse with this new material. So I think everywhere has its challenges when it comes to these things, but in New Jersey, it's just kind of behind the eight ball a little bit on that, and something has to be done. Ev, let's go uphill here a little bit. I'm going to show everybody the artificial canal that used to carry Catherine's Run away from the creek. So this is all part of all the land around the railroad bed anyway. It's parkland on the railroad bed, but around it is Beaverbrook Wildlife Management Area. So when this property was preserved and named, they didn't check all the maps. It's not really named on U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey. So it was seen as just a branch of the Beaver Brook. Not that it had a secondary name to it. All right, Ev, I'll come back down and pick you up in a second. But it was actually Catherine's Run, which we see on the 1874 Beers Atlas of Warren County. So here is the artificial waterway right here. Now, if you were down in this, you'd be able to see it's all stone lined. All right, Ev, I'm coming back. And it goes over this way. Okay, Ev. So quite a bit above the railroad bed, as you'll see. Hang on, Ev, I'm not leaving you. I was just showing them the hole. So you can see we're quite a bit of elevation above the railroad grade. So it was a bit of an engineering feat to get the creek up that high. Okay, Ev, I'm going to pick you up. So I started leading the hikes on the old Warren Railroad at the start of the group. And we used to go through Manunka Chunk Tunnel every year. But now the collapses are so bad. Same thing with Oxford Tunnel. And I haven't gone through Oxford Tunnel since 2017 because the collapse that year. Come here. So bad. It had earth coming through in it. And I've done some risky stuff over the years, as a lot of you have seen. But if I'm staying out of it, I think you should heed that as a reasonable warning that you probably don't want to be walking through it. It's pretty bad. So, all right, Ev, we're gonna put you back in your stroller so we can push back, and maybe we'll see a little bit more. Okay? A bit more. A little bit more. All right. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be a little bit bumpy going back, right? Yeah, we got to deal with the bumps a little bit. So, anyway, but these fields were all cultivated at first when we started doing the hikes. In fact, they weren't even yet state land. And then they remained cultivated for a while. This one that we're in now was first to grow in, and now, finally, after it's been about a decade, I think, since anything's been on it. It's okay, Ev. It's okay. A little bit bumpy, remember? A little bit bumpy. But you're okay. That's a big rock there, huh? Yeah. But now, it's freshly tilled, and maybe something else will happen with it. This is the staging area that was created when they were rehabilitating the area to try to mitigate the water flow coming out to Route 46. It's taking care of it right now, but I see the potential for it to get all dammed up further downstream, and it's a deep cut. Any amount of branches could get in there, and with the right amount of rain, could just flow back over the top of that. It would take a tremendous amount, and I suppose if we look at history, the chances of that are not very great. So I do commend the effort to do something as quickly as it was done, but I'm also in favor of starting to play. Look at the butterfly that landed on you, Ev. On your arm. Look at the butterfly on your arm. Other arm. See? Yeah, you had a butterfly land on your arm. That's good luck, I think. So, I think it needs to be addressed a bit more, but that's what's left, and that's how they mitigated this in the past. Now, over in here, it's hard to see. Ev, I'm gonna point out. Stay right here. I'm just gonna show everybody a little bit of the irrigation stuff that they did here. Not irrigation, but artificial canal. If I go through this, down through here, check it out. Hang on, Ev. I'm down in it now. This is where Catherine's Run was made to flow when they built the tunnel. Most people that come up through here will see this and just ignore it. But look at all the stone lining here. Some of it is more fine cut as you get further along. Over in the weeds over in here, there are building foundations and a well hole. But it's pretty neat that all this was done. And this is about the point where it starts meandering back over to the railroad bed. And it went under the right-of-way there. The most recent, around 1913, bridge abutment is still down there in the mess, where the creek went under the Lackawanna, but it's very little clearance there. Even when the railroad was in operation, they never built it for flood situations. It's not even really 3 or 4 feet above the grade of the railroad. And honestly, by the time 1913 happened, it was already a couple years after the Lackawanna Cutoff was built, so the entire Old Warren Railroad was referred to as the Old Main or the Old Road, and it was a secondary line. So all of this extra infrastructure was nothing but a headache to maintain. And that's why it wasn't maintained, and that's why it eventually was abandoned. So there you have it. We're on the road headed back out now. A little sunny. It's a hot 90-something degree day. It's tempting to jump in there, but I didn't. And you can still see the right-of-way down below us through the trees here. But it's a flooded mess now. And it has been at least below the tunnel for all the years I've been doing these hikes. I used to trudge through it with my group, but a lot of the group would